When it comes to LeBron versus Jordan, everyone in the past 10 years has had this debate at least one time. And looking at both their resumes, of course Jordan's legacy is set in stone, his career is over. But LeBron James, as he approaches 40, nowadays you either think he's the GOAT or you don't. There's really no in between. And barring some unforeseen miracle, he's not winning any more championships, MVPs, and certainly not Defensive Player of the Years. And today, that's our topic, the Defensive Player of the Year. As when it comes to Michael Jordan, someone like Nick Wright retroactively is going back in time to smear his legacy and throw dirt on his name.
Michael Jordan's 1988 Defensive Player of the Year award? Fugazi. Fraudulent. Inflated stats.
Now, if you know Nick Wright, this guy isn't a basketball fan, a Lakers fan, even a Cavs or Heat fan. He is purely a LeBron James fan. As what Nick Wright is doing very deceptively is saying Michael Jordan's stats, his career, and the 88 Defensive Player of the Year is put into question. And like I've done in previous videos, if you take away the steals and the blocks, Jordan that season still should have won the award. As out of the entire NBA, he only got top 5 in defensive win shares, defensive plus minus, and defensive rating. And his Bulls team, in large part due to him, they were a top 3 defense and first in opponents' points allowed. And if you ask me personally, why are we debating this in 2024? I think it's pretty simple. Nick Wright, Tom Haberstroh, they're at the very least clutch sports assets. And for LeBron James, what's the one award, the one accolade he's always pissed he didn't win? The 2013 Defensive Player of the Year.
I had a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year and also MVP in the same season. And that year, Marc Gasol was rewarded Defensive Player of the Year. But he made second team all defense.
Marc Gasol has in his house my Defensive Player of the Year award. This bothers LeBron more than he's ever let on, but maybe he's finally letting on.
I mean, that's the only award that I don't have in my house. That kind of stings. I talked about this before, like, it don't make sense.
For LeBron James, a guy who supposedly doesn't care about individual awards, individual accolades, or stats, to be complaining about this 10 years later, it is pretty telling. And for guys like Nick Wright, a lot of the talking heads, to them it's just common knowledge LeBron James, he was robbed in 2013. But the fascinating part about that is, they never really go in depth and explain themselves. Because if they did, it became fairly obvious Marc Gasol was the rightful winner of that award and should have been first team all defense, not second team. As looking at Marc that year, defensive plus minus, ranked first. Defensive win shares, ranked second. Defensive rating, he was fourth. Memphis' team, second defensive rating, and first in opponents' points per game. And Memphis on versus off the court, Marc Gasol's defensive rating was a plus 6.9. Now, looking at LeBron James, of course his ranks are very, very impressive. 5th in defensive plus minus, 8th in defensive win shares, top 25 in defensive rating. And Miami's overall team stats, they're still top 10. I'm not saying LeBron James that year wasn't a great defender and deserving of first team all defense. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that Marc Gasol was the rightful winner of that award. And I'd say looking back at the 2013 season all this time later, Tim Duncan actually was the guy who got robbed in all this. As Duncan's ranks compared to LeBron James, they're really better across the board. Defensive plus minus, he was second. Defensive win shares, fourth. Defensive rating for the entire NBA was first. The biggest crime from the 2013 season isn't that LeBron James was robbed of the Defensive Player of the Year. It's that Tim Duncan and Marc Gasol were on second team all defense. And some might say, well, those stats, the advanced metrics, that's nonsense and BS. Okay, say that. But Nick Wright just 3 months ago, when saying LeBron James should have been second team All-NBA over KD and Kawhi, what numbers did he cite specifically? Defensive plus minus and defensive win shares. And speaking of those two stats, we're looking through the 2010s decade. Defensive win share, defensive plus minus, more times than not determines who's the Defensive Player of the Year. But with that being said, looking at the 10 winners, 9 out of the 10 were top 10 in defensive plus minus, and defensive win shares. 8 of the 10 were top 5 in those categories, and 4 times the players were top 2 in both them, including Marc Gasol in 2013. Long story short, if you were top 5 in defensive win shares and defensive plus minus, you had a very good shot of winning the award. And somehow if you were top 2 in those categories, you were a virtual lock and a runaway winner that specific season. And when it comes to LeBron James constantly complaining saying the media hates him, I simply do not buy it. The media at this point is so pro LeBron James, it's nauseating. And for Michael Jordan the past 30-35 years, has he complained once about not getting accolades that maybe he should have won? For me, I've never heard it. I mean, look at Jordan 87. His defensive metrics, defensive ranks, compared to Michael Cooper, the winner of the DPOY, were drastically better. But Jordan that year wasn't even top 5 in the voting and missed out on both all-defensive teams. If you want to talk being robbed, a tragedy, having the media against you, Jordan 87 had a strong case for being all-defensive as well as the Defensive Player of the Year. And one last thing I do want to address, kind of debunk, is that Michael Jordan somehow is overrated, overhyped as a defender. And guys saying this, not just Nick Wright, also Rasheed Wallace, a former NBA player who played against Jordan in the 90s.
In my opinion, Mike wasn't all that good of a defender.
Mike who?
Jordan.
Defensive Player of the Year.
All that was
10 times. I think it was 10 all defensive teams. That Michael Jordan.
All that's you know what all that is, dog.
What is it?
You know what all that is. Now all that's NBA shit. Yeah, we like Mike. We gonna put him up there. Da 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 da.
Now look, Rasheed Wallace back in the day, a great NBA player, and honestly quite underrated. But when it comes to his Jordan claim, I can't take it at face value with no proof, evidence, or really solid data. And looking at Jordan from 88 to 98, his defensive win share, defensive plus minus ranks every single year were pretty damn impressive. 1988 among guards, first in both categories. 89, top 2 in both. 90, top 3. 91, once again first in both. 92, first defensive win shares, third in plus minus. 93, once again first, and fourth in defensive plus minus. 96, first and second. 97, second and 14th. And 98, first and 11th. The only suspect years for Jordan being first team all defense are really 97 and 98. And still both years Jordan was top 2 in defensive win shares. If you ask me objectively, was Jordan a first team all defensive player both those years, I'd say no. 98, definitely second team, and 97, it's still kind of up in the air. Because eye test wise, compared to Stockton, even Blaylock, I'd say Jordan at that point was a great defender. As when it came to his playoff numbers on, off, plus minus, in the playoffs was a plus 11, the best on the Bulls by a mile. And that right there is a common trend in NBA history. The older player who's a star is a defensive rep. If it's a tie or a close call, he'll get the nod the majority of the time. Case in point with Jordan in 1985 as a rookie. Jordan that year for guards was 4th in defensive win shares and 4th in defensive plus minus. Now, players who made the all-defensive team over Jordan, a guy named T.R. Dunn, and then Mo Cheeks, a Hall of Famer. Looking at those guys' defensive ranks compared to a rookie Jordan, MJ far superior. But at that point, a rookie being first team, second team all-defense was probably not going to happen. And of course, looking at 87 Jordan yet again, first defensive win shares, and second in defensive plus minus. Compared to Michael Cooper, who was first team all defense, the defensive player of the year, Jordan's overall ranks and stats were far superior. Long story short, looking at accolades, they can be fishy and wonky, but at the end of the day, things kind of even out when looking at players' careers. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.